Hey everybody, it's Foster with the Black Order Podcast and the author of the Friendly Neighborhood Web Warrior blog. I'm joined today by LVO winner Mike Deluca, who has agreed to talk shop in theory with me. So, thanks for coming on to the podcast, Mike.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, I wanted to start off with just kind of getting your thoughts on what is your approach to list building? You know, how do you look at the units that you want to take? Because I know that for me, when I'm going through, I've got ADD brain. You know, I've got 97 different units I want to bring. How do you narrow down the units and team tactics cards that you bring to your list?
Oh gosh. Well, in this particular case, I started this list back when the new rules dropped. I wanted to find the home for Black Order, and they're one of the few factions I had not played and wanted to, learn how to play them because they're very competitive, obviously, and I just needed. It turns out if you start playing Black Order, you start to recognize when other people misplay Black Order.
Okay.
Which is it's hard to notice if you don't play them. So that's definitely an advantage. So I had started with Avengers, like a Sam Spam shell with Black Order. I didn't like it as much. I found that Avengers just don't need them. They're too flexible. They have too much depth and flexibility they can just play mono very well. So then I put in the webs, and I was like, well, at a minimum, Web Warriors are great into Black Order. So Black Order mirrors are just disastrous. So at least I have options into like a Black Order situation. And Web Warriors are also really great into Sam because they just don't have to fight them. So if you're not killing Sam's characters, like they're leaderless functionally.
All right, I hadn't thought about it that way before. And I do like what you said about Black Order versus Black Order is just, it's no fun for anybody. A good buddy of mine used to main Black Order, and whenever I would tell him, hey, I want to practice, he'd say, okay, I'm playing something else.
Yeah, it's not a game that's worth playing, honestly. It sucks for both players. So then after that, like I originally, there's a bunch of characters that kind of like went in and out of the list over the last couple months. Like some of them were Venom, Enchantress, Corebox, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, Loki with the Space Gem, and I think Lizard. So they all did not make the cut.
Okay. So actually, while you brought him up, I gotta know what happened with our boy Venom.
Yeah, so I had Venom for a while, and I just never brought him. The points just never work out to where you want to play Venom, in my experience. It's like I stopped playing hammers, so the amount of times that I got put on 18 threat just was drastically decreased. And Black Panther and Voodoo just do so much work that Venom just doesn't. Venom is slow when the whole list is very fast, and he's basically depends on if he can hit spikes or like get spiked and not die, so that he can actually do something.
That's fair. I could also see that his energy defense may be a little bit of a hindrance for him.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal. I've played him into like Guardians, and like he has enough health a lot of the time that unless they just completely go AWOL, then he's probably okay. But right. Venom is very much he's just not consistent enough for me. Panther and Voodoo just don't have to roll dice ever, and I know that people get hung up on that being a negative play experience or whatever, but when you're looking for consistency and wins, it's a no-brainer.
All right, so I'm going to ask the real question that nobody has asked. Are you ready for it?
And let's hear it.
Who wins in an arm wrestling match, Venom or Black Panther?
It's probably Venom.
All right.
Venom's huge.
I mean, that's true. You win this round, sir.
Yeah.
So, I want to know, we know that Black Order brings the punch, Web Warriors brings the speed. When you look at your opponent and what's in their roster, what makes you decide Web Warriors versus Black Order?
So, people have asked me this question. It's very complicated, and it honestly deserves like a white paper of like of like a decision chart, because a lot of it's built on experience that I've had in many games over many months. And so there's some easy ones, like, Research Station is terrible for web warriors, so I'd probably just play Black Order unless the points are terrible, like the threat value. Like Demons is another Black Order crisis, so you probably want to be playing them on it. Outside of though, and like probably Meteors as well. Sword is not as bad because if you can play Sword at like 17 plus, you can bring Panther and Voodoo with the Web Warriors core, and you feel pretty good on it. Just because those two 4 threats can just completely dominate the crisis. Or you can just play Black Order, and that works too. So it's hard for your opponent to gauge what you're going to be doing. It also depends on what my opponent is playing. So like Spider Foes and Brotherhood kind of fold to Black Order pretty hard. Like in those two examples, Brotherhood, Magneto hates just being sent to the corner by Thanos every round. And then Spider Foes like to put out their Sinister Trap at the start of the game, and Thanos is a huge liability for them because you can just pull one of their characters into their own trap and then push them into Corvus, and they just die.
Okay, that's hilarious. I hadn't even thought about that interaction.
Yeah, so it's really bad for them. So unless they just don't play Sinister Trap or like put it on one of your close objectives, they're like them. They're just not playing like their best card functionally.
All right, after this interview, I'm going to go find my closest Spider Foes player and just drag him into his own trap.
Yeah, it's pretty bad for them. In fact, I didn't learn that until I played Chewie in the tournament. I didn't really have any games into Spider Foes, and I fielded Web Warriors into him, and I won the game, but it was really close. And I think if I just played Black Order, it would not have been close.
See, I've only my takeaways. Oh, sorry about that. I've only played against Spider Foes once, and it was a fantastic game that I won literally by a lucky dice roll with Moon Knight getting a token on turn 1. It was literally the deciding factor.
Yeah, my game against Chewie basically came down to like Gwen just being indestructible through blocks. So lucky there, and he got really lucky and shot from Venom. Would start whole to me. So I'd say it just evened out in the end.
Gotcha. Awesome. So one of the things that actually I want to talk to you about extracts and secures real quick. Obviously, the game lives and dies by extracts and secures. You want to make sure that you're basing your squad around it and your entire roster around this game plan. What made you choose the extracts and secures for LVO that you did?
Sure. So the easy ones are Extremis and Cosmic Invasion. Those are just slam dunk for both factions. And it turns out that most factions in the game just hate Map D. A lot of teams are too slow. They're too fighty in the middle. Map D spreads everyone out, slows the damage down, and you can just run music. Web Warriors can just run musical chairs around the Map D points and just not fight people. And Black Order can just swarm aside and just kill models on one side. So if your opponent wants to fight you, they either have to not score VPs on the other side of the map, or they score VPs on one side of the map and they just don't kill you, and then they lose anyway. And the Extremis healing is great for both factions.
I do love extreme healing.
And Cosmic Invasion is 16 threat, which is the premier Black Order threat. So that also helps. So those are really easy to play. And then Infinity is probably the third best out of the list. I think the only team that plays it just as good as Criminals, but I found that with Panther and Voodoo, I can beat Criminals on that. And I also don't really have any other choice, but I am going to be playing the F-Secure in place of Infinity going forward. It's just way too insane for the list. And then the extracts, so I'm playing all of the centerline extracts that are like singular. So Black Order likes those because obviously they're slow, and you can, if someone gets it, you can just kill them. Corvus is also great at finding them if you need to. You also, if you're playing Web Warriors on those, Panther or not Panther, Voodoo and Cat can steal them from people if they get them. So you can often play Voodoo and Cat on opposite sides. In that way, if they get it, you just take it from them and leave. Or if you get it, you just leave. So basically, they're just really good for you. And the 14 threat senators is obviously you can't play Black Order at 14 really, but unless your opponent is playing Gamma Wave or Sword Base, you can just play Black Order or whatever. And the 14 threat is kind of a bait sometimes that people get scared if they have prio on you. They see the 14 and they're like, oh, I don't really have a 14 threat squad. I'd rather not play 14, so I'll take extracts. And that's great because I always want to take secures.
Okay, very good. Which is interesting because for so long people were like, what's your 14 threat list? Oh my God, what's the 14 threat list? And now everybody's like, I don't believe in 14 points. This game only starts at 16, man.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same, but that's not the reality we live in. But my list does have a couple 14 threat squads that are really, really good, depending on the secure. And you can go the 5 wide with like Miles, Gwen, Black Cat, Moon Knight, and Toad. You could obviously put Proxima in there if you wanted, instead of one of the other 3 threats. And then it also has an unaffiliated 14 with Corvus, Proxima, Voodoo, and Toad, which is really brutal at 14 threat against any list that like wants to hold priority and kill you.
Yeah, I don't think that I want to fight that. That's not a tonight thing.
Obviously, your leader list unaffiliated, but Corvus, Proxima, Voodoo kind of make up for it.
I was going to say, you know what's better than having a leadership skill? Murder.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've played it into like a 4 wide Brotherhood at 14, and you just execute Magneto right off the top of the game, and it's just kind of over from there.
So it's interesting that you bring up Magneto. I've actually, I rocked Magneto at the last tournament that I played, and he was easily my MVP. And I was thinking, man, Corvus and Proxima, they weren't working how I wanted them to. But then I saw your list and I was like, maybe they can stay for a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, all the 10 characters in my list are just some of the best characters in the game. So you can just field really flexible lists or squads into basically everything and have better model quality than other people.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do like the Web Warriors is all their models, minus Daredevil, but we don't talk about Daredevil anywhere. It's kind of like Bruno.
Yeah, if you look at like Daredevil and Iron Fist side by side, you'll start to wonder why Daredevil is a 4th threat.
You know, I dislike Daredevil so much, it made me do math.
Yeah,
to show how much I dislike him. Yeah. I actually wrote an entire article over it. It's great. But yeah, I mean, I look at characters like Miles, Gwen, even Baby Pete, who I have my own issues with, is a fantastic character in the right lists. And it's hard to find another faction outside of possibly Avengers, but that's because everybody's an Avenger for some reason that just does it as well.
Yeah, so I had Corbox Parker in my list right up until a couple weeks before LVO, and I realized I needed somebody in that slot to be able to play Mutant Madman. And I had taken Wakanda to top 4 in the TTS League in Season 5, and Panther won me so many games on Mutant Madman. And then I realized that he's just an amazing Web Warrior. It was basically just the slam dunk pick.
Well, I'm gonna have to try him out myself.
Yeah, he does everything Web Warriors want. He's long move. He has control. He's extremely durable, and you give him the reroll when he's already counting blanks. It gets pretty nutty.
You don't have to convince me anymore. I'm gonna go into my box right now, and I think I'm gonna throw away Ronan, who I brought earlier.
You can also Miles' leadership also lets him reroll his attack dice on when he mantles. He can reroll his skulls.
I hadn't even thought about that. So that should tell you how long I've played since I've been playing Black Panther. I forgot that he even has that ability. Yeah,
Black Panther is absolutely insane.
So you just said that you took Wakanda, to the top. How do you feel about them not being represented at all at LVO?
I think they're good. I think they're just old and people don't want to play them. I also think they don't fit a lot of people's playstyles. I also think Okoye is their weakest point now. Um, I think they're very solid, and I really think they're good if you duel with them with A-Force. But yeah, I just don't think they're a lot of people's cup of tea, and it is what it is. I love Wakanda, and but I also love playing like VP scenario style games with minimal fighting, which is also something I get flack for sometimes, and it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Well, I mean, it's also one of those things. The best way to win a dice game, is to not roll dice.
Yeah, I just feel like I have more agency when I can control things like that, and it's more rewarding for me. It's like my game plan revolves around murdering somebody, and then my dice crap the bed. It just feels like I don't have agency, and I don't enjoy that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. It's one of the worst feelings on the planet is going, man, I rolled 9 dice, and for some reason it was like, somehow it was 11 skulls. I don't even know how that happened, but welcome to a world of dice.
Yeah. So I'm very happy there's options like Wakanda and Web Warriors in the game for people like me.
Well, speaking about those Web Warriors, and, as we were talking earlier, I'm a Web Warrior main. And so I feel like Marked for Death is just showing up everywhere. Why do you think it's gained such popularity outside of its ability to drop miles, like a sack of potatoes?
I think it's just because you have so many, I wouldn't say a lot, but you have more tactic slots, and it just seems like an easy pick for people that haven't done a ton of reps. I think it actually has very niche use cases. And it's probably the first card that I cut. Well, I take that back. So I had Aunt May's Wheat Cakes originally, and then I had Disarm for the remainder of the event. And Disarm is out now for Indomitable. Yeah. Mark for Death is now the 10th card, and if anything better comes around, it does get replaced. I'm running it in particular for Web Warrior Mirrors, because I can't really play Black Order into Web Warriors. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And if I'm going to play a Web Warrior Mirror, I would at least want to be teched for it.
Yeah, most certainly. And being able to just, as I said earlier, drop miles and then remove that, what I would consider a top 5 leadership ability in the game is pretty big.
Yeah, so Mark for Death, mostly the calling cards for when I would play Mark for Death is when I'm expecting to kill the following characters: Miles, Hulk, Blade, either of the Doctor Stranges, and Black Cat.
Yep, that makes sense on Cat. Yeah, she's a menace, man.
Yeah, the slow move is actually more impactful for her, but the rerolls stop the other characters that I had mentioned. And when I'm expecting to kill those characters, I bring that card.
Fair enough. So speaking about slow movement, how do you feel about Amazing Spider-Man?
He's another one that I forgot to mention. Yeah, if I want to kill an ASM, in that card.
But like, would he ever make it into a list of yours? Because I mean, I know he's expensive, but man, is he hard to kill.
Yeah, so he just doesn't really have a home in this list that I played for the event for numerous reasons. But I did have him in my Dormammu list that got a lot of attention last season in the TS League.
I mean, that makes sense. Being able to web swing every turn, and then running a strength 7 attack that can get momentum on people. Whew.
Yeah, when he has like Dormammu power, he can basically spam witty banter and his web swing pretty easily. There's also like space in the Dormammu list for 1/5 threat, and he's just great there.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. So, just curious, what factions gave you the biggest issues at LVO?
Chewy Spider Foes, actually, because I chose to play Web Warriors, and then the dice did not go my way at the beginning of the game. Right. My one loss, well, both my losses, I kind of got diced a little bit, but the first loss was a misplay on my part that cascaded into bad dice. That was against an Avengers player with Steve and Cable. His dice came back around, and he lost his first round of the cut, so I don't think that faction is the best in the game. As far as what gave me trouble, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like my list has game into everything.
All
I'm
right.
not that afraid of most things. Let's see. I played against some criminals players, but I'm teched tremendously into criminals. I play into Sam Spam, and again, if I can get the right secure, I don't have to fight them. I feel pretty good. Uh, I didn't have to play any of the Suns players. Played against a Cabal list. That was really easy. Dormammu was easy as well because Thanos just sends him to the corner. It's hard to say. The list has a lot of flexibility and it doesn't really have any bad games.
Sorry, I'm kind of giggling over here. All I imagine is Thanos telling Dormammu to go to his room.
Yeah, it's the same with Magneto. You just, especially that game, that particular game was on sword base because my opponent played it, but it was like, it's literally like, okay, I sword push Dormammu, I mind him, and I portal him to the corner every round.
You Eldritch deity, you go back to your dimension.
Yeah, he just gets shut down really hard.
I love it. It's fantastic. So, I mean, speaking of Midnight Suns, so Midnight Suns is one of those factions that for me, it gives me trouble. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, so Suns is, if you want to fight them, you probably should just play Black Order. I've beaten them with Black Order many times. Suns really want priority, and if you don't ever let them have priority, they're in big trouble. So you just play the typical Black Order game plan and bring Mark for death if Blade is the one that you end up killing, and you just call it a day from there.
Right,
If
well,
you get a wide scenario, then you can play webs and just kind of run around, not fight them. Map D is probably the worst secure shape for Midnight Suns.
I'll have to keep that in mind because like I've gotten rocked every single time, and I think that our style on Web Warriors is a little bit different, which is what I love about Web Warriors is that all styles are welcome. You got hard control lists coming in. You've got extreme fighty lists that sometimes work out too. But every time I've tried to go up against them, Ghost Rider just looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, I don't think so."
Yeah, Ghost Rider can be kind of annoying because he can long move and double attack you. But if you'd be surprised at how many people just don't go for Gwen. And if you position Gwen properly, it's very disadvantageous for them to go for Gwen because like they're killing her but not scoring VPs or doing anything relevant on scenario. My Gwen's often just like not on a secure or holding an extract, so if and in like the back of the table, like max 4 from characters that they want to kill. So it's like they can dive her and be useless, or they can attack my other characters, which then plays into like lifesavers and stuff like that.
All right, so what I'm hearing is I need to edit this part of the podcast so people don't get the secret Gwen tech out there.
Yeah, I mean Gwen is literally she's the queen from chess. So like if she dies, then the game plan becomes very difficult for the Spiders player.
All right, and folks, you heard it here first. You don't have to worry about Gwen at all. Just leave her alone. Moving on. So, what do you think is going to be coming up? I know that in what is it, like 9 days, we've got the Juggernaut coming in, and Rogue, and Gambit, and Magic, and a Paperweight. What's coming down the pipes, and what do you think is going to shape the meta from here, from what we know so far?
So obviously, I think my list is one of the best in the game. That's why I played it. I think Avengers are very strong, but I think Avengers need to play a control style game with their numerous throws. Sam Wilson and I think Shuri is very good in Avengers. So I think that's a top list. I think Guardians with Ghost Rider is very, very good. It can be inconsistent, but it's very good. I think Criminals are very, very good. Criminals do have some problems. They can randomly get diced. They lose. They also have some terrible secures, so you need a game plan to deal with those. It's probably the top of the game for me. I think Brotherhood will be extremely popular because of Juggernaut and potentially Rogue. So I think they're really great for that affiliation. But again, Brotherhood's not easy to pilot. And Magneto, if he has a bad game, you probably lose. And Brotherhood has a terrible matchup into Black Order, so if they don't have answers into Black Order, they're gonna have some issues.
Yeah, I think the last time I played Black Order into Brotherhood, it legitimately was Thanos just porting Magneto in so that Corvus and Proxima could just curb stomp him.
Yeah, it basically just comes down to Black Order. It has priority forever. So any list that really wants to have priority and kill you kind of just folds to them. That's just the reality of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been on the receiving end of those stomps way too many times.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that Magneto's slow, so he just gets portaled and mind gemmed to the back of the table every round. Plus, all your characters in Black Order have -1 damage, which makes the throw damage a lot worse.
Yeah, that is true. I actually, as I said earlier, I played Magneto, oddly enough, over, not at LVO, but over LVO weekend at a local tournament. And easily the throw was the best part of him for me, outside of holding an objective with Miles and then just full rerolls when I was able to do it. But, I mean, I could imagine just always having a -1 damage is a pain to get through.
Yeah, it kind of shuts down like the Magneto double move, throw everything around him from like trying to recover from Thanos, but it's not good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me, man. I think that those were all the questions I had. I learned a lot tonight, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. There's so many other things to talk about. I played this list into basically everything in the game. That's how I arrived on what it is, and I'm sure I'll be talking more about it on Danger Room this week or something.
Well, and you're always welcome on the Black Order podcast, my friend.
So why is your podcast called Black Order?
All right, so that's an interesting question. That buddy of mine that I told you about that played Black Order,
yeah,
we do this together, and so we're trying to think up these names. We're like, I love Marvel, but I was playing Web Warriors and X-Force at the time, and he was playing only Black Order. I think literally he only switched out from Black Order to Midnight Suns with the changes, and he's talking about going back. And so I was like, well, the more consistent of the two of us is the Black Order player. And we play fairly similarly, a very aggressive play style. So, let's do that. We'll just call it the Black Order podcast and call it a day. Because his favorite character is Thanos. And my favorite character is Peter Parker. But, Infinity Webs just doesn't have the same kind of ring,
Well, I call my list Black Web list, so.
Well, there you go.
Kind of stolen from the Dormammu name, which was Dark Web.
It's funny. I thought I was so original too, because I read the articles, I listen to podcasts, I keep up with the community, and I was like, man, I know for a fact nobody's going to come with this before me. And so the day Dormammu came out, I put it in Assemble, and the very next day I saw a whole bunch of people talk about Dark Web. I was like, mother.
Yeah, Sploosh and I didn't even come up with that name, I don't think. Someone in the community did.
I know it wasn't me, because I just recently started being a vocal voice in the community, so that wasn't me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out Rogue, and I'm definitely looking forward because since I hate Midnight Suns so much, I actually really want to try Juggernaut into Midnight Suns.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. Juggernaut, if you're trying to use Juggernaut as an attrition character, you're probably going to be disappointed. He typically just gets 1/8 die attack, and obviously I've rolled enough She-Hulk attacks to where it doesn't do anything. And Juggernaut's strength is his mobility and just honestly just not dying.
That was what I was thinking. I was like, man, he'll just keep moving all over the place, and there's really no stopping him.
Yeah, that's why I think he's honestly better in Criminals than in Brotherhood. But he enables some cool stuff in Brotherhood, like a 3-wide 16 with Scarlet and Magneto.
See, I wonder if he'll actually be fairly good with Mystique, just being able to move up and interact with points and get around where he needs to.
That's hard to say, because I feel Map D, or maybe Map B, probably wants Mystique leadership, but if one point goes completely uncontested, it probably means that you're either winning or losing. In which case, it's not really relevant.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah. I think the future will tell us what we need to know when it comes to us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and end the podcast there. Again, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yep. See you later.